People, I call the Community Development Commission meeting ordered at 12:00, at 12. Will the staff conduct a roll call?
Chair Stubb.
Present.
Commissioner Johnson second.
Here.
Commissioner Tim.
Here.
Commissioner Cole.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Davis.
Here.
Commissioner Bailey.
Present.
Commissioner Green.
Here.
Commissioner Dean.
She was on her way.
Oh, okay. I saw her online. Is she gonna come in?
She left it for me.
Oh, okay.
And Commissioner Robledo.
Go ahead.
He is doing things.
He's working from his real job has him at prison working.
Yeah, I believe I received an email from him letting me know that he wouldn't be here. Sorry, I just saw that this morning.
Okay, so the first agenda item is the approval of minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I motion to approve the minutes.
Do I have a second?
Okay.
All those in favor of the approval of the minutes? Any opposed? And the motion carries. I'll turn it over to the staff for the scheduled business for the day.
Hi, sorry I'm not there in person, but I'm here. So the first agenda item we have is some agency consultations. So I'm just gonna go down the list of people that I have and we'll go in that order if that's okay. So with Family Tree Relief Nursery, I've got Renee Smith, and again, I'm just hoping you'll talk to speak to the needs of your clients, what services that they need, where are there gaps, or is there greater demand for services, and are there challenges for your clients in accessing those services or meeting their needs?
All right. Well, I'm happy to do that. Thank you, Beth. I'm Renee Smith. I'm the director of Family Tree Relief Nursery, and I just want to first thank you all for inviting all of us to come and talk about the families that we serve. Many of us serve similar families across the community, and we know that families are struggling. Family Tree primarily works with families with children in early childhood, as well as up into grade school into early middle school. And then we also work with a number of parents that are coming out of incarceration and are trying to reconnect with their families, grow children with grandchildren. So we work with families from that family systems approach, regardless of where they are in their adult or child life. What we know, I reached out to my program teams, and they said that a lot of our families are facing issues with housing. I'm sure not surprising to any of you, but that their access to affordable housing is very challenging. There's just not enough resources available. And that oftentimes people will, there's not enough rentals to access their housing vouchers. And oftentimes the wait lists are long, and families that have the HUD vouchers have difficulty finding anything that's available with a short enough wait list to meet the time for that they can use their vouchers. We have a lot of families and parents that are in recovery from substance use disorder, and so they share that there's not enough sober living housing available. And that even within shelter space, it is challenging to find shelter space for an individual that is new in their recovery and not using alcohol and drugs. Been saying this for a long time, that there's really no viable family shelter space in our community. And so if you are a parent with children, you either need to leave our community and go to Corvallis, or you end up sharing housing with either friends or family or acquaintances, sharing couches and small space, not really accommodate all the numbers of individuals living in that home. Our staff is saying that application fees to find out about housing have been increasing, and that is a challenge, especially if you need to apply for at more than one spot. And then deposit and security fees have risen so high that often it's unattainable. Even if they can find a space, they don't have the funding to be able to pay those deposits, and that our resources such as CSC, Salvation Army, and even IHN often do not have financial resources themselves to help with those fees. We have families that have issues with credit, criminal records, and evictions, and that they're having trouble finding housing, even if they've gone through the RETOIL program. And then a number of our families, our Hispanic families, can often have more than 2 children. The case we see is 2 parents who have children. They dissolve their relationships with the parents of those children. They're the parents that retain custody of the children. She might have 2, someone else might have 3 or 4, and now they come together in a family of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10. And so being able to find housing for large families is very challenging, and then affording that 3-bedroom apartment just often, that will barely meet their needs, but they're not able to afford the rent on that type of apartment or housing. And then we also have families that are losing housing that they may have, as they're finding it hard to maintain current on their rent if they fall behind. And then again, there's a shortage of resources for that. I would add the star to that we are hopeful of starting, I think it is in either November or January, IHN will be having some benefits for a small group of their members that may help them with housing. And so we're still waiting to kind of see what that plan will look like. We've applied to be a screener and supporter, helping with getting those benefits out to people. It won't be for all their members. It will be for a prescribed list of their members. So we're hoping that will help a little bit, but it really is not going to change the situation for the bulk of the families that are trying to find housing. Our staff report transportation is always a challenge. We have bus service, but it's not necessarily convenient to where people live. If you're home during the day and you have multiple young children that aren't in school, it's very challenging to get on the bus, go to where you may be able to pick up your food box, and then get the food box and the children back on the bus in a way that's safe for everyone to your location, off the bus, down the street. So it just can really be challenging for individuals that don't have access to their friends or family or their own vehicle. Sometimes families have a vehicle, but if they're a 2-partner family, the partner takes it to work. So then in essence, during the day, it's not available for the parent at home. And then oftentimes the resources that they need are not available after work hours or on the weekends. So they may have transportation, but it's not available during the day. And they can use transportation services to get to healthcare appointments and things like that through Rideline if there are members at IHN, so that can be helpful. But overall, transportation to get needed food resources is really challenging. And then on top of that, we have many food deserts in the city of Albany. We lack a full-service grocery store, I believe, at least south of 34th Street. It may even be closer in. If you live out in that area by LBCC, your closest resource is our 7-Elevens or convenience stores, which don't have the healthiest choices, and prices are more expensive. And even at that, it can be a walk from where you're living, having to cross the Big Highway to get to that 7-Eleven. And even within our main shopping area, so many of our old grocery stores are within a square mile of each other. And so if you live anywhere south and east before you get to I-5, it can be really challenging to be able to get to those grocery stores. And within our, we're doing some survey around food deserts with the grant that we got from IHN, just starting that project to really see what the barriers are, and is there a way within our community that systems can be supportive, including government systems. But one of the things they highlight is that the individuals at our food banks are very respectful of the different cultural groups' needs for food and food choices. So they feel really supported at the food pantries. There's just not enough resources within the food pantries to meet the needs of our Hispanic community, our Indigenous families as well as those that may be vegetarian, vegan, or don't eat special diets. So I think all of that compounding, when you can't get to a full service grocery store, can make it really challenging to a healthy diet for children and adults. And what we know within around the 800 to 1,000 families that we serve every year, 25% of them indicate that they don't have enough food for every member of their family to eat 3 meals a day. And so we are still seeing increasing food scarcity issues, especially as our prices where I think that potato chips got to be $8, but you can just sit and watch the price go up on the basic food right now. We're still seeing quite a new emergence of food needs within the families. Those are probably the 3 highlights. I think childcare is always challenging, and as organizations that being to cite a newly certified child care center, our city don't make it easy. There is any licensed child care center needs to have a conditional use permit. There's no zoning that is set to allow for a child care center, but
That's changing, that'll be changing with, in our plan from the area, and probably citywide, so in the next half years.
well, that's exciting because I'm going to be my first time in we had a lot. It really, because it's challenging to find places that are close to where families live, especially if you're a provider that doesn't have a lot of resources to share.
So, I mean, you can still set up a childcare center. It's just a different land use process from, I mean, if you don't just get a building permit, you would have to go through a land use process through site plan review, but conditional use is just a little bit more of a land use review. So many cities don't allow childcare in a lot of the zones, so at least we're a little bit ahead on that. But we are working to remove that barrier so much with it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Renee. That was great information. We appreciate it. But I want to turn it over next to Andrea Bartel with Young Roots.
Hello, I'm Andrea Bartel, Executive Director of Young Roots Oregon. And we are a culturally specific organization. So we support those that are pregnant or parenting ages teen to 24. So we are culturally specific to young families. I don't want to displace anything that Renee said. You gave an amazing synopsis that I think all of us can agree are huge barriers. And so what I'm kind of platform is that advocacy for young families. And that's our wheelhouse. And so something that I see consistently, and I'm sure Renee does, and I'm sure Danae does as well, is that when people are pregnant or parenting, no matter what age they're at, whether they're 15 or they're 35, becoming a parent wants to make you do better and be better. And that is something that I see consistently within our people. But when you are 15 versus you're 35, you have drastically different experiences because one, you don't have autonomy, and you also don't have the resources internally, externally, to be able to build what you want to build, right? And so when you're young, that is increasingly difficult to do. And so that's why we are here to help to seek to create a better way forward for young families. So we do that in many different ways, but here we're talking about housing and all the specific things. I did bring flyers because I know we are much newer with grassroots out of Albany. We just got our first, we're a year into our facility space, which is in Periwinkle Plaza. We share a space with Kidco Head Start, so we have a great partnership with them, as well as a lot of other community resources that come in and teach classes for parenting skills and look at all the good things. So, but economic stability is a huge issue for our people. As we know in our economy, when you're a young person in general, so when you're an adolescent, it is really hard to even think how you're going to have stability when so many have seen the generational struggle and generational poverty, and they just mentally don't know even how to get there. And so that's why we're here to support. But then also when you're parenting, we are in a childcare desert. You have to have childcare to be able to have economic stability. You have to have transportation to have economic stability. You have to have, you have to have a village and have support to be able to have an economic stability. And you have to have education, which if you are in the public school district, you do not have the infrastructure to support you if you are pregnant or parenting. There's a high dropout. We work with the school district. Unfortunately, things have shifted within the school district a lot. So our people have become less priority, but we're still fighting for that. So, but education is huge. We have a GED program as well. And so seeking to help to for them to get to that educational level to a place where they can start expanding, because not having a high school diploma or a GED holds you back drastically from being able to move ahead in the workplace economically. So so just to piggyback off of all the things that Renee presented, which we absolutely see, I would also want to say we see with housing, we see a lot of peoples who are experiencing domestic violence and toxic relationships who want to get out, they can't get out because even with a HUD voucher, when they get the golden ticket of having a HUD voucher, they can't qualify for a place without having at least $2,000 worth of from my calculations, most recently anyway, you have to have at least $2,000 of gross income coming in to even qualify with a voucher for a 2-bedroom apartment. So when you don't have childcare, you don't have transportation, you're not going to be able to have a job if you're a single parent. And then also educational levels, all of those pieces, they just drastically deplete the ability. Then they're getting into a place where they're needing to seek shelter space. They're needing to seek, right? And so and they don't have the resiliency and the support to be able to not get into a pretty low state in life where child welfare is getting involved and all of those social services are getting involved, where it can be preventable if we're able to look at funding being preventative, not reactive. We need reaction. We need the reactive, absolutely, but being preventive in our funding with housing, especially because when people have that, they're able to have that housing stability. They're able to then have that decreased stress to be able to step into those next steps, right? To make those next steps and to be able to provide the better space, better moving forward, to have hope, right? Like to have hope to be able to have a better way forward for themselves and their family because they want it. It's not that they're lazy. It's not that they don't want it, because I see young parents fighting every single day to be able to keep diapers on their children, to have food on the table, right? Like to even learn how to cook, to learn how to, to like even know how to, if I get a food box, how do I even cook it, right? How do I even do those simple things that maybe like seem very normal, I guess, for some of us that grew up. But when you've grown up in generational poverty, you've grown up, that's just not the normal, right? Stress is normal. And so we want to make healthy normal, right? But it comes with being able to help decrease that stress and showing our families and our people that the community cares about them and they see them and we're willing to be able to invest in them and to get them to a long-term place where they are going to be being taxpayers of the city, right? Like being able to long-term, if we get 50 more, if we invest in funding to be able to get them into a healthy, thriving space, then that's more revenue coming in the city long-term, right? And so not being displaced. So it benefits us all when we're willing to invest in these seats for sure. So yeah, I think there was, laundry. That's the other piece. Laundry is the other. So having a safe place for families to have. So something that we've tried to step into, don't have funding for, but we continue to see, well, they need transportation to get to laundering. For example, a story, we have a mom that just, her child welfare case was just dismissed last week, so it was a huge deal. But seeing her experience of, she had a head after, was in it's all the things that I'm sharing with you of, and this is a citizen of your city. And so I just want to share this story of, so child welfare involvement, we're helping to do, preventive services, and intensive services. And then she was in foster care as a youth, so then she was able to get an emergency voucher, which is amazing. She has a partner. They have 2 children under 2 years old, or well, yeah, they're not 2 yet. Older than 2 yet. Domestic violence happened. She thankfully leaves that relationship, but then, and is able to stay in HUD. But now that she needs to move because he's starting to stalk her and all the things, so she needs to move. Well, she can't. She has been having such a hard time finding a new place, even though it's okay for her to move. She's finding a hard place because she doesn't have that income, because she doesn't have childcare, she doesn't have transportation, she doesn't have a GED. She's working on it. She doesn't have a GED to be able to, jump into those next places. But she has her apartment that she was in. She is in a top floor with 2 young children, single parent, no laundering in her apartment. Right? She can't even go for a walk because she can't get both of her little, getting a stroller down and getting her 2 little people down safely. And the laundering is right downstairs, but she can't get to it, and it's not a safe way for her to be able to do that for her family. And so, but then also hearing from other families that they avoid laundromats because there's a lot of creepy things that happen at laundromats, that they can't go unless they have a support person there because they don't feel safe. So, anyway, so just the neat story. It's good, right? To hear about what people face, and especially when, I haven't faced that myself, and then just doing her laundry for her is what I'll do it. Luckily, I'm just a few blocks away, and I do her laundry for her and try to make sure that she has that proper hygiene and wellness for her and her kiddos, where she wants that, she just can't have it safely. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's, exactly the kind of information we look for, right? Is experiences that we might not have and might not know about, but that other people are facing. So I appreciate what you had to say. And next I'll turn it over to Beth Lee with Oregon Cascades West Council of Governments. We're assuming that Beth is in the room.
Beth, she's not here, and neither is Felicity. But we do have Scott Withers from Albany Boys and Girls Club, and
Great.
I'm not sure the person named Jeff is representing an agency.
Well,
I
let's
sent
turn
an
it over.
email, but I wasn't sure if you were able to get the email.
Yeah, let's take a look at that. I'll turn it over to Scott then with Boys and Girls Club.
All right, hi everyone. Thank you for having us. Obviously, we specialize in the after-school department more than anything else, but also some community services. I don't have maybe quite the amount of data on family needs and housing and that kind of stuff that some of the other organizations will do, but some of the things that we are addressing currently have to do more with after school care for kids, because as a lot of you probably know, the CAP program was a big part in this community for a long time. They have shut down. And the school district came to us and the YMCA in about mid-July and asked if we could pick some of those programs up at different sites. We are going to take over Meadow Ridge, that site. The YMCA is doing a bunch of the other ones, so we are kind of, as a community, able to come together to do that. One of the biggest needs that we've seen, and the reason we expanded to Waverly first, and then now Meadow Ridge and the Y is expanding to other areas in the community, was even though we have after school programming at our main campus here at the Boys and Girls Club, and the Y has theirs, with our lower income families, transportation has always kind of been an issue home. So we have buses that run to our facility and the Y directly from school. But with a lot of the families that we have that are either single parent families or families where maybe both parents are working until late at night just because they're not working traditional schedules, a lot of the challenges was, how do we get in front of kids and serve these families that really need it when they don't have the ability to come get their kids from our site. So I know in terms of like having public transportation in Albany, it's not something that is super prevalent, especially for kids just to be able to hop on a bus and go from one area to another. So I would say that like right now is one of the biggest needs that we're trying to address. And that's why we're expanding into school sites as much as our kind of main campus here at the Boys and Girls Club. And then also being able to keep things affordable for kids. And thankfully, we have our board and community partners that have been nothing except incredibly supportive. So we are able to keep our fees at $25 for the school year for this year and hopefully for the foreseeable future moving forward. We're going to do before school care. We're calling it early birds for the first time we've ever tried anything before school. And that's going to be at Meadow Ridge while the YMCA takes some of the other schools in the area. So the idea to the early morning care was for families that have to work early, obviously, but it's only for those schools that start later. So we have some elementary schools in the district that start at like 7:30 or 7:40 in the morning. We also have some, including like South Shore, Meadow Ridge, and Timber Ridge, which are the three that we're focusing on that don't start until 9 o'clock. So what do those parents do? They have to be at work at 7 a.m. Well, the Y is going to run morning programs at their facility, and I know they were looking at one or two other elementary school sites to do that, and then we are going to do it at Meadow Ridge, and the school district is going to provide busing from Meadow Ridge to South Shore. So if any kids in the South Shore district want to have the ability for the morning program, they can go out to Meadow Ridge for us and then get bused. Like parents would drop off at Meadow Ridge and then get bused to their school before the school day starts. So just trying to address that need in transportation, trying to address the need in affordable childcare for a lot of these families that the previous organizations have talked about, whether it's single parent families or ones that are looking for housing, whatever we can do to be open as much as possible to serve kids. Like that's what we're here for. And then one of the other things that I know we're struggling a little bit with is providing services for Spanish speaking first families. We have a couple people on staff who are bilingual, but we just went to like redo our parent handbook and even to an extent struggling to find someone to translate what we have in English with changes over to Spanish and making sure that those services are available to all the families in the community, no matter what their first language is. So I think those are some of the things we're seeing. Obviously, our dental program is still going strong and providing free dental services for kids in the community. We've kind of got through summer program right now. We're in the last week of it, so back to school here real shortly. But that's where we're at. And I think the two things that we're looking at as the biggest need for us is figuring transportation out for those lower income families and like how to make sure that if the kids can get to the club here and they have a safe place to be from 2:30 to 7 every day, what are they doing? How are they getting home after that? And then just the need for us to find more bilingual staff that can really connect with those kids that maybe English isn't their first language. So.
Great service, thank you. I wasn't aware that CAPS closed down. That's huge.
Yeah, and this is a lot cheaper. I mean,
Yeah, we had heard CAPS was like 450-ish a month, and
Yeah.
we're going 25 a year. We're keeping our fees the same. So
that is amazing. I mean, that's such a huge resource, and to do it at the schools, that's such a good idea. I mean, that's what the CAP program was, but we wouldn't have survived without the before school and after, so that we could work 8 to 5. So yeah.
Yeah, I will say our before school care, there is some extra fees that are associated with that. I think we're going $100 a month for that. And that's just simply because we have to hire a whole new set of staff and we have to be able to figure out how to staff a building for an extra 3 hours in the morning. So there's a little bit more to that, but all the after school programming is what we're keeping at our same normal fees. And our fees for before school match exactly what the YMCA is doing at their sites. So it's continuity across the board, but the after school fees are different.
I just want to say too, my mom was a single mom and Boys and Girls Club raised me, really. Like, my whole childhood was being raised at the Boys and Girls Club. And it was my family, in a sense. And it's really cool what you guys are doing.
Yeah, kudos to you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, that means a lot. And I mean, the community support we couldn't do without. So everything that the city of Albany's partnered with us and stuff in is huge.
See Felicity?
Yeah, so it looks like Felicity was able to join online. So Felicity's with CASA of Lynn County, which stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates. So I'm going to turn it over to her now.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. I unfortunately was not able to come quite as prepared as I would have liked, but the majority of what we're noticing within CASA and our program is doing increasingly well over the last couple of years. We recently had a pretty extensive change in staff, and our advocate numbers have almost doubled in the amount that we've been able to train over the last couple of years, and those are that are maintaining current caseloads. So that's wonderful. Sorry, my cat is right next. We are having a similar struggle with not having very many Spanish-speaking advocates available to work with children that are coming in that don't have English as a first language. So that's a difficulty, and the majority of the issues that we see just existing in our community is just a lack of resources, which I think is pretty across the board for the whole state, if not the whole country. There's a distinct struggle getting children and their parents into access mental health treatment, and for parents that struggle with substance abuse, finding access to treatment facilities and inpatient facilities is incredibly difficult. We've also noticed pretty consistently that I think there's only 2 available domestic violence batterers treatment centers that at least Lynn County parents will be referred to. One is in Eugene, and the other, I believe, is out of Salem. I could be wrong on that, but from what I've noticed. And I think those are the main issues that we're seeing.
Yeah.
And would you say like those services that are out of Salem and Eugene like are more like comprehensive kind of treatment or therapeutic services?
They're mostly therapeutic services for just having those conversations and doing the work that needs done internally for the parents that struggle in that way. And they're good programs. They're excellent programs. The unfortunate situation is that they're not necessarily accessible to the parents that need them because they are so far outside of the county of origin, because it takes transportation, it takes additional resources, and it's just not something that's easily accessible.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So I just want to also turn it back over to the CDC members and ask if you guys had any questions for any of our agency consultations today.
Have one, you want to.
Am I?
You.
Am I? I was not prepared to share.
I'm sorry.
I just are you putting Commissioner Dean on the spot?
If someone should be sharing, give us a little snippet.
What do you like to hear about? Just anything?
What are the needs that you're seeing arising
Oh,
in this category?
yeah, affordable housing, housing first is important. Gives people a safe, stable place as they move forward. Accessing all of the other things that are needed. Access to mental health care is a massive need. We're not able to stabilize anyone right now to help them access shelter, detox, treatment, inpatient. So a lot of what we see, and we're so thankful, right? All this money that comes down that says, hey, add beds to your shelter. Great. Yes, we need beds. Also, we need funding to staff those beds. We also need another level of care for people to be stabilized in before they come into shelter, so it is safe and successful for them, everyone else, staff, and our community. And detox. I think a lot of what we see is the separation of like unhoused, substance use, mental health. Nope. All braided together and trying to access, support, treatment, services when all 3 of those things are happening is really difficult. So services that can help us navigate those things.
Do you think the mental health challenges, it's more of a financial or lack of providers?
I think it is an entire system that is very, very broken. So I think it's a lot of things. Do you want me to start? It's just a real, I think, a funding provider shortage, how the system works.
How they function together in the past.
Yeah.
It is not healthy in a way that to help people to move forward together.
And even with increased coverage under PCOs and IHN, there's not enough capacity in the providers to assist, especially if you're in a rural area. It's a myriad, it's very complex this. And then most people don't just show up with behavioral health issues. There's so much co-occurring disorder. You have substance disorder and you have behavioral health and you have, you could have physical issues as physical health issues as well. So to have the complexity of services to support that individual is really challenging.
So across the board, are you seeing more, let's say, seniors or people above 65 coming into shelters?
Yeah, I mean, we have been for the last couple of years, people in their 80s, people going through stage 4 cancer treatment, people that cannot physically care for themselves being dropped off in shelter parking lots. So yes, we're seeing that, we've been seeing that. Accessing support for that is also really, really difficult, trying to get people signed up with senior disability services, going through that, and then a lack of beds available in care facilities, things like that is really tricky. We're also seeing young adults, like some that were like, can we please see your ID? Because we need to make sure that you are 18. We're seeing a huge increase of young adults that are Marvin's Garden, trying to access shelter, coming into drop-in centers, looking for services. I mean, we've seen 14-year-olds come in to our center with no parent present, and so then trying to connect with the appropriate agencies to support them. So yeah, I'd say we're seeing some younger and seniors and medically fragile.
We've seen a lot of women that aren't on Medicare yet, that are like in their late 50s, early 60s, and they're not connected to a family structure. So we work to help them get connected with someone else. And sometimes we just serve them even though they're to my board, even though they're not within our rural service delivery, just because there's a real lack of service for being or a veteran or
We're told that Gen X is about to hit a financial cliff for a large portion of that age group that will not be able to afford to continue to work, will not be able to afford any sort of retirement. It'd be helpful, I think, to understand if, of these presentations, what the demand is versus what you're able to fulfill. And I realize for some things, especially like Boys and Girls Club, it's a little different because you have monies coming in from varieties of sources, including fees and things. But, and I think that's probably true of all the agencies, but if there's a gap of, 3,000 people in our community that are completely left out in the cold, either in mental health resources or housing resources. And then we see that year over year or term over term, the commissions that is growing, then we can say, well, our efforts are treading water or helping whatever, or against, I think there needs to be, I just said, as long as I've been in this chair and helping out, it's felt like I need to see more metrics, so this sort of thing is playing out. So
It's actually my question as well, what's our percentage here? Are we actually doing a great job as a city serving the clientele of people, but we're still, of course, kind of focused on people we're not serving.
Sure,
But how many people are we holding?
sure, yeah.
How many people are, like, collectively, our agencies, what is our support ratio to, like, we still need to do better, but like over the last 5 years, like, we've increased massively by the score, or suck, and we really need, to crank it up.
If people are doing better, then what are they doing better? And why, and how can we do that? And like, I don't know a lot about what happened with regard to the council in this camping situation, that closing it in the Supreme Court and yada, yada, yada. But I know there's a bunch of people that have the right to camp on city land and to do that. So how does that affect the commission and the city's need to provide affordable housing and or places for people to lay their head at night? I'd like to understand that as and vis-a-vis the folks who also provide shelters and things as well. So I think that's something that the public would like to understand.
Could I advocate to have county representatives in the conversation as well? Because I think there's so much intersecting that's happening. We're all on different meetings and such with the county, and a lot of money gets funneled through the county, and the services are primarily in Albany in our city, right? Like it's actually right in the city, right? And so I really think that it'd be super important to have that conversation. I mean, like the math group, right? Like having Eric here on this conversation where there's money that's being funneled from the state through CSC, through the county, and through like for housing, right? Like for beds, increasing beds, and yes, that includes all the county, but that's happening in the city. And so I think that it'd be helpful to have county and city in conversation together. But how, you might, I just don't know. I don't see them here. And so, so I know that they're just right here as well, most of them. So I would advocate for that kind of.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Also, this is like one conversation and a series of conversations. So future meetings will be bringing in hopefully some of our shelter service providers, some of those people that are working on the housing issues, either through providing affordable housing or helping assist people get into that housing through vouchers or other assistance programs. So I think bringing in the county is a great idea because you're right, they do provide a lot of services and we want to make sure that we're coordinating those efforts, right?
I think to your point about data, depending upon what type of service or what type of gap you're looking at, different ones have different kinds of data. So I think about access to childcare, and so I know the little bit Lincoln early learning and childcare data. So they do a lot of data analysis. We have our own. I mean, I can tell you how many people we're serving and how many people we have on the wait list, but I don't know how many other people are out there that are on the wait list. So, and good or bad, there is no gigantic database in the sky that everyone puts their stuff into.
Are you prepared to share those numbers?
Sure, I would have to go back and finish up the service here, but I can get those and send them to Matt and she can.
Thank you.
It would be cool to know if that wait list or that gap was, in your opinion, closing or widening. It sounds like for you, for just maybe yours is widening. It's but that would be an interesting.
Around really childhood with the spread of preschool promise. So preschool for 4-year-olds and above, I'm not saying there's enough capacity, but there's more capacity than there ever has been. And so I think where we're seeing still the gap is in that young infant to the time they'd be 3 to 4. That continues to be a gap in service until we know, to Andrea's point, that is when children are the most vulnerable because they require parents' support every day.
The statistic is for our county is that for no matter what economic level you're at, right? There's 1 infant spot available for every 6 infants in our county. So even if you have $900 a month to give, right, there's still just that 1 spot. So that's where the desert comes into play.
I think for the future agency consultations, we'll make sure to have agencies kind of, who are you serving? What are your numbers? Where are the gaps? I think Commissioner Davis brought up a good point, but there is a group that meets at the fire station, and I have never been like, I'm not on my calendar, but I mean, you probably attend those meetings. And it is, I mean, I think Lynn County, City of Albany, it's kind of the back, it's like the working group of people trying to address homelessness issues, but I think that we need a specific city task force, city Lynn County task force because of the Marvin's Garden issue and we have the Camp Boondoggle and people camping the river. I mean, what can the city do? What are the tools in the city's toolbox to partner? I mean, the city maybe isn't, you know, what is the city able to do? What are the other partner agencies able to do? And I mean, one of the purposes of these meetings is in our action plans, we really end up collecting a lot of data, and we get a lot of data from our subrecipients and those agencies that don't apply. So we're having to ask all the agencies out there, what are you doing? And where are those gaps? And then this kind of information will help you figure out if there are certain priorities that you want to raise above all the many needs in our community when you're reviewing applications for next year. So this is just our first round of agency consultations, but just keep that in mind, and we'll try to make sure that agencies hit certain things. But I do think that, of course, homelessness is a huge issue, and it's a huge issue for HUD. What are we doing? But I did want to ask Emma, is the Bailey House, do you know if the Albany Helping Hands Bailey House is closed? Because that is available for women with children. And I don't know if any of you have been sending people to the Bailey House.
We do, but it's pretty small.
Yeah, it's small. And then Jackson Street, of course, is our agency that does a lot of work with the unaccompanied youth, but they may be able to.
I think that we have some resources, right, in our community, but because we don't have the next step, enough of the next step, that affordable housing, that supportive housing, individuals are getting stuck in those transitional spaces in shelter, in the Bailey home. Those programs and services that are really beautiful and really can, right, catch people and provide that laundry, transportation, like as they're settling and healing and working towards those next steps. I would say what we see is those are getting backed up because somebody may be like, hey, I've got my GED, I've got the job, childcare's lined up, I've got my car. Great. And now we don't have a place that you can go that you can afford.
Right.
So what, we're gonna kick you out and put you out on the streets with your kiddo or your family or by yourself, and we're gonna start this all over again. So I think, well, yes, right, like there is the Bailey home. It's small and people are, I don't want to say stuck. Does anybody have a better word?
Well,
or is that end of the word?
It feels like, yeah, that's what you feel like, that's what I feel like.
Families use Oxford has, well, it's like one child is fairly okay, two, but you have more than a few, and the older they get, not every one of those has to get really set up to foster and support children. I mean, there's a lot of people living in a house, and so.
Right.
And a lot of trauma and a lot of stuff. I advocate for adolescent parents not to be in those spaces because we have them get groomed by older peoples. And so the younger people are like wanting that parent type, grandparent type, and they don't have it, and then they get groomed by the older people.
Well, parenting standard for child welfare is pretty low. I see like deepest parenting we have for more for families, but standards are pretty low.
Well, and that's for all the services, the Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA and all the, I mean, having different adults and other people in your lives is also so important, and it helps with that spectrum of care that household needs. But yeah, I mean, we definitely need more housing units. And on that note, you guys, I don't know if you have any more thoughts about agency consultations, but I did want to bring up, we're working on implementing some of the strategies in the housing implementation plan, and your participation in focus groups or writing in as this goes through. We are proposing policies to one's a construction excise tax that would be set aside for affordable housing, One is surplus property for affordable housing. If land is zone residential that the city happens, we have very little land available, but could it first be considered for housing, right? Rather than a parking lot or something like that. And then the last strategy is adding some more tax abatement programs for long-term affordable housing providers. So those are, because we don't have any tools in our toolbox to provide money to build affordable housing, trying to find incentives that might bring more affordable housing to Albany. And we're competing with other cities. I mean, Corvallis has a lot of these tools in their toolbox already, and they have great developers coming in and building long-term affordable housing that's going to be affordable for 60 years. So, I mean, it's things that we're considering, and I know this group had expressed interest before in supporting these strategies. So there is, Beth, maybe you can send the link out to
I can send
the
the link out, or I can send out the information. But for those that, if you're interested right now, our first upcoming focus group on the housing policies is Wednesday, September 11th at 9 a.m. And our second option is Monday, September 16th at 11 a.m. So it's just right before the CDC meeting on September 16th, if you're able to come. But I'll send that out. And so if you are, please let me know so we have an idea of how many people will be joining us.
Beth, can you send those dates again, please?
Well, we'll just send it out to you because I know that you're trying to get your phones, but I also want to make sure we've got a lot of the subrecipients on our email list, but we need to make sure all those subrecipients, all of our CDBG subrecipients, we should be emailing out our participation. We'll also be doing the survey. We're working on drafting the survey. There are other things that we're doing in the development code to remove, some barriers that we've heard to developing housing types and trying to figure out ways we can incentivize housing. But I mean, we know that 1-bedroom units are 600 plus families are on that, but they have an unbounded waiting list, and we're not building 1-bedroom units. We don't have 600 coming in the pipeline. We've got 70 coming in the pipeline, but they get to the top of the list. They can't find a 1-bedroom unit or home, and that's all they qualify for. And HUD, Limited Housing Authority, is trying to do everything they can to get people into housing and with any flexibilities that has. But that's, an example of something that could we incentivize 1-bedroom units somehow? But anyway, we're working on a package of things. Everything takes a while for you to see things on the ground. But I thought you guys provided really good comments. Like the food desert, we have land zoned. We can't force people to build. What are those obstacles? We've got obstacles to crossing the railroad. We need money for roads. We need money for, different things because the state is listening right now. So it's a good opportunity to try to prioritize city financial needs for some of these infrastructure projects. So there's a multi-pronged approach here. All the agencies in our community are bulk of the work, but we're trying to do what we can.
Well, then we haven't even spoken about, I think about my son who's 32. He works, doesn't have a partner, but he is pressed out of the housing. And so he's not taking up an apartment because he's living in his grandparents' house before we sell it, but he's going to have to re-enter the rental market. So you have so many different types of residents trying to enter housing. And it's just a myriad of issues that make it complicated.
So somebody presented on the call, they mentioned a rent well program.
Yeah, so I think CSC offers that. So
We do too.
and you do too. So if you have credit and rental history issues, if you've been evicted, you can take these courses, and it helps you when you're applying for apartments. If you've taken a class, it's kind of like a financial fitness class.
Teaches you, if it's okay if I interject, it teaches tenant rights and responsibilities. And so with our program, we also do a financial foundations class because we have a housing stability program funded through IHN Share. So it kind of about the land part. What's that?
Like budgeting type stuff?
So Randolph does a little bit of that too. We got on the financial foundations class through Denver West and OSU Credit Union. Anyway, but with the rent will, it gives, once you complete, it's pretty intensive, it's 15 hours. And they have to do like a rental portfolio and get references and all of that. So it's really great, especially our people have the hardest time because they don't have credit history. And so it gives them that opportunity to have that credit history. And having someone, one of our program directors leads it, and so it also gives them that reference as well. And then it gives them, it comes with a landlord guarantee by the state. And so if the landlord buys into it, they have to opt in. It gives them, this landlord guarantee gives them $5,000 of guaranteed money if that person who entered into a lease with them, who is rent well certified, maybe trashes the home, maybe steps out of their lease, maybe, right? So it gives them that like guarantee to take that risk. Not all landlords are unfortunately in it. So that would be an amazing incentive too, of even like getting information out to landlords in the city, of like, CSC is a great organization, bigger organization as well. We are doing it because there wasn't room at CSC for our people to participate. So we just went ahead and did have one of our program directors get certified. So anyway, yeah, so it's really been helpful. We've had one of our clients that had a bad rental history apply for a new place, and the landlord was really impressed with, rental portfolio, and so it really helps boost their confidence a lot, which was really great. So
and the CSC, they do have some assist. They're trying to prevent people from losing their housing, trying to prevent foreclosure. But my understanding is they also have help trying to get money to help people get into housing with some of those deposits. But so they get money funneled through the program to them, provide some of that support. But I mean, there's a lot out there. So.
If you don't mind me sharing, I forgot to say that we're actually opening a transitional home for adolescent parents and families. So we're super excited. I think it's going to open next week. It came really quickly. And so we're just learning from Jackson Street and partnering with them and learning from all the things. So hopefully help to relieve some burden off as a few weeks ago, we called around the client in every single shelter. Every single program is at least a 3 to 4 month waiting list. And so when you're looking at our person needed housing in 4 weeks, even though that's a pretty good timeline, I think it was 6 weeks actually, wasn't able to have a program that was open and available. So that's thankfully it all came together, and a private owner, because rental management companies won't work with us. So it was a private renter or private owner, and willing to work with us. So anyway, so we're super excited about it, and be able to hopefully have an emergency room as well for those that have an emergency state need for domestic violence. Yeah, and we will. And it's super great because the laundry room is actually accessible from the outside, and so we'll be able to have times where clients are going to be able to use that, and it'll be in a kid-friendly space and all that. So very yeah, super excited. Just funding to be able to.
So is it they pay for rent or they don't?
They're just paying 10% of their income. So most places are 30%, Jackson Street 30%. We're doing 10 just to relieve, as the hope is that we don't, we'll be able to get grant funding for it. But then they'll also have rental history. So then they can say that they paid in to be able to help them build rental history as well.
Is there a timeline that they stay here?
Right now, we're doing it to a 6 week to 4 month program. Depending on where they're at, if they're pregnant and they need, that postpartum, care stay, so then they will be able to extend their stay. Circumstances, yeah, so we'll be able to have room for 4 to 5 families. Yeah,
That's great.
that's awesome.
How exciting. So just the other quick part of our agenda was just that there are the end of year reports that I've received from subrecipients in your agenda packet. So wanted to give you guys a chance to look those over. Next month, we'll have an even more comprehensive report on the performance outcomes from the 23 to 24 program years. So you can look forward to seeing that next meeting.
Yeah, I just wanted to know that Family Tree Relief Nursery used to get funding, but they are so successful, and they have decided that a couple of years ago to step aside and allow money to be, because they were always high applicants and always receive money when they applied, but their willingness to kind of get out of the cycle and spring up resources to help other agencies, and it's really appreciated. Family Tree Relief Nurseries received money from the very beginning, and a couple of years ago they decided that, it's a small amount of money, but it can do a lot of really good things for agencies of different size and depending on their needs. But it's something that long time ago that CDC at the time talked about, should there be maximum number of years before you have to take a break, but it's like, no, let's just address the needs. But since we always get more applications and there is funding, I appreciate that Family Tree steps aside. Not that you can't come back, but I just want to say it's a success. I think it speaks to the success of your staff and program.
Yeah, we are really hard. I think I try to make sense of what your focuses are and what your priorities are. And if we don't really align with the priorities, it's like, I appreciate the support we've had year after year. And so if it doesn't really align with the priorities, that saves you having to make a hard decision. I don't have to make it. So
Take reference to 20.
well, we reserve the right to come back and let your priorities. Some of you see the funding that's attached to Measure 110. We've received a lot of funding through those programs, both in Northern and Benton County, for our peer support work. And so we've almost doubled our peer support team, whereas it used to be to help adults and families that are suffering from substance use disorder. You pretty much had to be involved with child welfare or with Lynn County or the criminal justice system to get that support. And now any person that calls us that would like to have that support would offer that. And that has really expanded our peer support work to help families, because it's just insidious within our community. But thank you for asking us to keep coming and sharing. We love to do that.
Also, you guys have a community council, I mean. So I'm giving Mary the outside. Third. Get you on.
Well, I'll just say, is there any business from?
And is there any business conditions? Your time, right now. Okay.
I think the question about the housing market, how long do those last? They expire or they do not expire?
No, it's managed by Lynn Benton Housing Authority, but pretty much once you get in, you stay in. They even have a family self-sufficiency team that tries to help people move out of the supported housing, whether, the individual development accounts helping them save money or whatever. But it's, it's all through the federal government, it's all through that, so. Well, so you have a certain amount of time to find a house when you get to the top of the list. And they've tried to extend that from 3 months if they can, a little bit longer. If you don't find housing, unfortunately, you go back to the bottom. Now, certain types of people are kind of flew to the top, I believe. It's not my program, I'm not an expert on it, but once you have a HUD voucher, unless for some reason you not qualify, but I even believe if your income's increased, you still get to stay in that house or type of apartment. And the thing about these is that it can go to any house that qualifies, and the requirements for a house to qualify are kind of basic habitability standards. So somebody isn't necessarily forced to live in an apartment. They want to try to find something within a school district. Of course, they're narrowing their choices, but you can take that voucher and that is actually the reason, the biggest supported program for residents. Over 960 or so Albany households have a voucher and they're getting affordable housing through that program. So
Albany.
there's a limited housing authority website, and I think that you just have to, I don't know.
Yeah, they have it, and it's at
That's on their website.
yeah, on their website, they haven't, they have.
Yeah, because it changes probably frequently. They communicate with their waiting list about the information, and you know, some people, if they found housing, getting them off the waiting list.
I emailed my staff about the Better Interventions Program, so this will be service for the perpetrator. There is one in Lynn County called Bridges to Safety. It may be a virtual program, I don't know about that, but they said that in Lynn County, Bridges to Safety.
It is, I've had somebody take that on for aid management.
Yeah.
To like get, it was just, it's a weird, like, their service is, anyway, it's just, what's very, really interesting where you're like, you have somebody that wants to engage and you like, but you're putting up a lot of barriers for them to like engage in the service. It was really, it was bizarre, but it was only one, you know,
They've been doing better. They've been.
yeah.
Give one more thing.
Yeah, one thing. So, you know, you guys all know, I think you know that I'm on the board for the WISE Housing and Veterans Housing Project. In 2 cities, Mosesburg and Albany, so they're selected Albany to build 40 units, 38 units with space for counseling over on Price Road. So we're in the process of getting that. So we're pretty excited about it because it's here, also close to services. So that's going to be that forward.
Great. It's everybody can really work.
Yeah, so the veterans get to look out and see the more parts of it. You know, it's kind of like a U-shaped. So they'll have a courtyard in the middle and it's a parking there for them as well. It's over.
That's great.
It's a high end build.
It's a nice building.
It's a beautiful place for them to.
So you get tangled. So
I'll be to start.
Okay, I'll call this meeting to adjourn. Meeting ends. Thank you so much.